A judge has found the former sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona, guilty of contempt. We're talking about Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who is no longer the sheriff. Constituents voted against him in this last election, so he's no longer sheriff. Here's what happened with this federal judge. Susan Bolton read her ruling and essentially said, not only did defendant Joe Arpaio abdicate responsibility, he announced to the world and to his subordinates that he was going to continue business as usual no matter who said otherwise. So what is she talking about? Well, a judge had ordered him to stop a discriminatory process that was against the Constitution. Essentially what he was doing was telling law enforcement officials to ask individuals who looked Latino for their papers. And if they were not documented, he would arrest them and send them to ICE authorities, and then they would be deported. And it's against the law. He wasn't supposed to do it.
So let me just jump in for a second. Not only was it unconstitutional to do that, but there was no state law that made it a crime to be undocumented in Arizona. So, and that's incredibly important, because what the judge was saying to the Sheriff Arpaio is stop arresting for people for something they did not commit. Like if it's in the books and you want to be tough on them, that's, hey, have at it, Hoss, that's your decision. I'm not gonna get involved in how you're a sheriff. But if you're arresting for people for things that are not a crime, well, that's an enormous problem if you're the sheriff. Can he then arrest you because he doesn't like you for other things that aren't a crime?
Exactly.
And this is not that unprecedented, and it happened during the Civil Rights Movement. So Civil Rights Act is passed, the Voting Rights Act is passed. African Americans have a right to vote, same way that white people do, and there's no more poll tax, etc. And then some of the local law enforcement down there would go, no, I'm just not going to listen to the law. So Martin Luther King made a great point about that. He said, we go do civil disobedience in the South, but the reality is we're actually exercising our rights. We're within the law. When they arrest us, it's an illegal arrest. They're the ones committing a crime.
Right.
And so in this case, this is very similar. He's targeting Latinos, and he says, I don't care what the law is. He's not the law and order sheriff. He's the exact opposite of law and order.
Right, and so look, they were detaining people without any reasonable suspicion. And that's a big issue, because there's the profiling component of what he was doing, which is target anyone who looks like they might be Latino and try to figure out whether or not they're here legally or illegally. And then they were targeted without reasonable suspicion of committing a crime. And so that's a problem, and that's the reason why the judge said, you gotta stop this, this is not the right policy. And this is not a constitutional policy, it's unlawful, okay? And not only did he ignore the judge's orders, he proceeded to be boastful about how he was continuing to ignore the judge's orders. And as a result, this federal judge on Monday found him in contempt. And so we'll see what the consequences will be for that. But he's a sheriff for a very long time. He harassed and discriminated against a lot of people. He's 85 years old now. I don't know what kind of consequence he's gonna face, but.
Well, I know what he should face. Lock him up, lock him up. Look, no, it's really very important to our democratic form of government that no one is above the law, including the people who apply the law. And if they say to a judge and brag, oh yeah, I'm gonna violate the law, and I'm the sheriff and there's nothing you can do about it, well, that destroys our three branches of government. That's the executive branch saying, I have a gun and you don't. So that is a very dangerous concept. Now he's facing 6 months in jail for this. He's going to, of course, appeal, and they're going to try to run out the clock on this. But what he did was very obvious, because he openly bragged about it in front of everybody and thought he was going to get away with it. And to come to find out, no, the law also applies to you. You're not going to get away with it. I think he should, if go through the regular process, definitely, no question about it. Follow the law to the letter of the T. Cross your T's, dot your I's, and follow the law completely. And if at the end of the process he is found to be guilty again, absolutely go to jail. And don't pull any excuse about how old he is. He didn't care about anybody. He put people in tent cities. He made them wear outfits like this and pink underwear, and degraded and humiliated other prisoners. I don't think we should do likewise to him. But at a minimum, if he broke the law like everyone else, he should go to jail. Lock him up. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.